professionals and managers, but think about the people that work for you, yourselves, and the people you work for, because it works in all dimensions. Next slide, please. Now, let's have a look at my detector here. I saw it flash. Where is it? Yes, I thought it was. Young lady here, perhaps. What do you think that man is doing? There's no wrong answer. Don't worry, it's not a trick question. What would you say that man is doing?
Building construction.
Building construction. Fine. So, what would you say that man was doing?
Trying to fix something.
Okay, good. Who else looks slightly dozy? Everybody sat up, looking alert now. Sir, what would you say that man was doing on that? He's trying to?
Scrap that whatever is there.
Okay. Right, well, actually it's a picture of a bricklayer. And the little story here is, a little parable is, bricklayer, laying bricks there. We go up to him and ask him, what are you doing? He says, I'm laying bricks. Good question, good answer, that's fine. Another colleague of his is doing much the same thing, and I go up to him and I say, what are you doing? He says, I'm building a wall. Also correct, a good answer. Go further along, there's another colleague working, and I say, excuse me, what are you doing? He says, I'm building a palace. Now, all three gentlemen are correct, but all three of them have a different view of what they're doing, what they're contributing to. And I think part of the message is see the bigger picture. What are you contributing to? So, for instance, what do you do? That's a tricky question now, isn't it? You think, oh, it was flashing. So what do you do? Just tell me what you think you do.
I was deeply inspired by this story. I was trying to understand what I'm doing right.
Yeah. No, I don't mean what you're doing now. What do you do in your professional life, or?
I'm a writer.
You're a writer?
I'm a trainer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So can you think of the bigger picture now?
I think I definitely help you to become better people.
Absolutely great. That's good. Yeah. So yes, you're a trainer, you're a writer, but look at the bigger picture. Yeah. You're helping other people to change. Okay, next slide, please. So that's the question. What do you do? And I think it is really important that you look beyond the task that you're doing at any one time, or the series of projects that you're working on, and look at the bigger picture. Because in all of us, we have huge innate abilities, which are often limited by the fact that we close them down, or other people close them down on us. Next slide, please. Now, this is fairly obvious, but it is very important. It is happening around us, and it's happening at a frightening rate. And the other thing that nature tells us is it's inevitable. You've just got to look at the events in your own country at the moment and in the world. Things are happening, but they're inevitable. You can't stop them. We can mitigate some of the effects of them. And in fact, there's one thing about nature, the nature in terms of evolution, I think, is that we've learned. And what it tells us is that basically the species that have survived, and of course we're one of them, or at least we've evolved, and that is that the species that have survived over the millennia are those species that are the most able to adapt, and to quickly adapt. And that's going to be so much more important for the future, because as time goes on, it's fairly obvious by studies there are less species on the Earth. So those that are left are going to have to survive. Otherwise, we're all doomed, okay? But it comes right back to our personal lives and the lives of, our corporate lives as well. So again, this is really important in my view. You need to think about the fact that we have to evolve. You can't just stay stationary. It doesn't work. You're not going to survive. Next slide, please. Now, I just put this image up because I think it's just one of those images of millions that you could pick up at any one time. If you were to go into a German city today, next slide, please, you're going to be presented with this as a car park. You'll leave your car at the reception, gets picked up by a machine and slotted into a slot automatically. That's already in operation, already happening. And it doesn't need any people. Completely computer controlled. I mean, that's change, isn't it? That's the sort of change we're dealing with. And you can look at the millennia things, laptops, computers, phones, iPods, MP3s, 4, 5s, or whatever. We've got to keep on top of this change. We've got to keep it in control. We've got to be able to use it. Next slide, please. Now, I'm going to go into a really risky area here, because actually this is supposed to be classic HR theory. But I really believe in this stuff. I mean, just look at it. Now, who would actually be brave enough to own up, to belong to one of these organizations? Anybody? Wow. You mean you all work for the perfect organization? Because what goes with my theory is that any organization with more than one person is inevitably going to have a problem. And it's going to have this problem. Because it's simply the interaction of people. And it is very difficult. So any organization that's got more than one person is going to have a problem. And these are the things that are so damaging. And they work against the inherent capabilities and energies of the individual. Suspicion, hostile rivalry, fear, anxiety, helplessness, feeling of being a victim, and finally just that horrible feeling of misery, having to get up in the morning and having to go back into the office, into this environment. And they clearly do exist. I've seen many of them. Okay, so fairly obvious, the next slide is how it ought to be. And again, I'm sure you can take this away because this is the ideal. Now, you'll never achieve it, not 100%, but this is utopia. This is how organizations ought to be if they got more than one person in them. Because if you imagine, an organization with one person can achieve that on his own. However, he's going to have customers, and they cause him probably problems with the previous slide. But trust, openness, interdependence, honesty, and fun. Fun. Do we go to work to have fun? Well, why not? As long as we're doing a good job, adding to the bottom line, building value. At the end of the day, look, we're living. What are we here for? We're not here just to work, are we? So anybody work in one of those organizations then? Anybody dare admit? My word. We're stuck in limbo. There must be an organization I haven't thought of. All right. Well, I'm not going to press you on this point because it can be difficult. And I'm not going to ask Leslie either because she might let me down. All right, next slide, please. But there is that one word. It was the first bullet point on the previous slide, trust. And look at that cat. He's trusted that these police dogs have been properly trained. Actually, he's a little bit cocky because I think he's done it several times. So he just knows he can walk in front of these dogs. You know, they must be very eager to chase him, but they've been well trained, and there's a trust. There's a trust bond there, even with the trainers. They know they've trained those dogs to such an extent that they will sit. They'll watch, but they'll not go for the cat. And trust, from my point, from my angle, is absolutely essential to make any of this work. Difficult to achieve, but the theme of trust, in my view, has got to be key. Next slide, please. So I have a number of recommendations. You can accept them, reject them. I'm not saying, I'm not claiming to be an expert. I occasionally succeed. Okay? Occasionally I succeed. Next slide, please. Aim to achieve excellence and do not compromise on this standard. And again, if you can bring this to your people, both the people you work for, yourselves, and the people that work for you, you'll have achieved a lot. And by the way, excellence doesn't mean perfection. There is a difference. Excellence is what is needed, what is right, fit for purpose. Next slide, please. Build inherent high personal standards and behavior. In my view, you cannot succeed. Organizations cannot succeed if they have individuals or leaders in them that do not display these characteristics. Because people look for models. Next slide, please. Open your mind to continuous learning. Well, it's good to see you all here. Learn something new every day. I assure you, your brain can take it because you hardly use it, according to the experts. And I believe them. So you can do a little more every day. Whether it's a new foreign word, a new technique, anything, it doesn't matter. But think about it. Learn something new every day. Keep that grey matter going. And encourage your people to do the same. Next, please. Bit like the bricklayer. You can lay bricks if you wish. You can build a wall if you wish. But wouldn't it be great if you built the palace? Doing the same thing, but it's simply about being that strategic thinker. And by being a strategic thinker, there's a good chance that you and your organization is going to be so much more successful. The big picture. Next slide, please. And this applies everywhere in the world. There are some places that are more prone to it than others, but the blame game, them over there. I had a boss that used to call it totting. Totting? Yes, them over there. Tot, okay? And it's simply not very positive. It's actually a very negative emotion in a sense. And it passes the responsibility. Next slide, please. So go back one, sorry. Yeah, that responsibility syndrome. Okay, next slide. Take every opportunity to walk in other worlds and meet other people, hear ideas. Again, this is about simply accepting what the world has to offer. Again, it's about that learning concept. And the fact that you're here is a very good signal. And I'm pleased to be here as well, because I will probably learn more than you. In fact, that's almost definite I will. So that exposure to global travel, ideas, behaviors, people are just amazing. Just being in this hotel, you can meet people from all over the world, just having breakfast. So come and have breakfast at the Avari. That's your first step. It's amazing who you can meet. Next slide. So, again, it's your life, it's your country, it's your world. Take responsibility for it. I know it's not easy, but you have to step in as an individual in a community. And if I could leave you with a thought that says, there is today a precious opportunity to shape the future, and I can't afford to ignore it, then that will be, I think, a good message to have. Because communally, we work together like this, and we get our people to work in that way. The future would be so much more positive. Next slide, please. So the message, learn, adapt, and keep doing it. Next slide, please. Now, this is the last slide, and it's back to my thesis again, and I don't apologize for showing it to you twice. How's the snooze? It's not doing bad, not doing bad. Now, this thesis also sort of